Hey listener, welcome to 1000 Routes. I'm your host, Nick Bennett. In each episode, we explore the uncommon paths of solopreneurs who have bet on themselves and the reality of what it takes to build a business that serves your life. Enjoy the episode.
I'm Justin Blackman, and I'm a brand voice expert.
Clean, crisp, concise.
I got it down at this point.
It's kind of like you've practiced.
I've been saying my name for a long time.
Yeah, you've been at it since 2017. I always talk about people who went solo in like 2021 or 2022, and like they beat the rush, but you really beat the rush. And in 2017 was a totally different place, totally different time in humanity, like to go out on your own. So what was your motivation way back when to leave corporate life?
Well, the fact is, I had tried to go out on my own before that. My previous career, I had been working for a lot of corporate brands. I worked for Puma for a little bit, for Red Bull for 3 years. I worked for 5 Hour Energy for 3 years. I worked for a couple other brands for 3 years. And I was on this 3-year cycle where it just seems like every 3 years there was some sort of reorg and I got laid off. And then I was working for IHG, a big hotel company here in Atlanta. Sorry, before that, I had actually tried to go freelance after one of my previous roles ended. And I tried to go freelance. I didn't have a business set up. Like I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, oh, I'll just put it on a website and people will come to me. In 6 months, I made $500 and I ran out of money. And I was like,
what year is this? Like put it into context.
That would have been about 2014, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like smartphones, like think about it, like smartphones and stuff are kind of like on the rise. Like the internet was just in the early stages of like social was still ramping. Like it was a totally different time to try and do this type of work.
Yeah. GoDaddy was advertising with Danica Patrick at that time, and anyone could build a website. I bought a website for, like $9. I think I threw it up on Squarespace, and I was like, oh, now people will come to me. And no, they did not.
So you're saying if you build it, they won't come?
They will not come unless you're really, really loud about it and tell everyone.
What were you trying to do then? Like, what were you freelancing? What type of work were you trying to do?
So I was in field marketing at that point, mostly like a lot of sampling brands. So with Red Bull and 5 Hour Energy, I was with Red Bull, I used to manage one of the teams that like with the Mini Coopers, I gave out cans. I did a lot of consumer awareness type of things. And I figured that I had a lot of experience. I had a lot of connections that I could probably work with like food brands to help set up sampling. And I thought that would be an easy win for me, that I had the network. It just didn't happen. So I ran out of money, and then I got a job during that time when I wasn't really marketing myself. I thought people would come to me, but I learned how to build a website and I learned how to write. And I learned how to change the spoken stuff into writing. And I landed a job with IHG as a copywriter and as a content manager. This is when content was king. So I developed a really strong writing skill at that point. And I had kind of built up a little side hustle in the background, mostly because I just wanted to write my own stuff. I was having a great time writing for the hotels. It was a ton of fun. And I did this project where I wrote 100 headlines every day for 100 days. And just to get better, just to see what would happen. And also to kind of get known a little bit. So I did that. And that was in like 2015. But you asked about how I left in 2017. So I put up a blog that didn't really get much traction, but I did have copywriting sites ask me about the headline project, the 100 headlines. And I wrote a guest post on Copy Hackers. Somebody read that and reached out to me and said, hey, I need a writer who can write fast and can write well and write in a lot of voices. Would you consider coming to work for us? And IHG had been there for 3 years. There was a reorg going on. And I was like, I know where this is going. If I stay, there's a good chance that I could be let go tomorrow. I have this opportunity here. They're asking me to come in-house to work for them. And I said, you know what? I won't come work for you, but you can be my client. And they're like, it doesn't make a difference to us. It's a 1099 either way. Yeah, let's do that. So I left because I had an opportunity. It wasn't this big leap. It wasn't scary. It was, hey, here's the money that I need replaced. If you can match that, we can make it happen. So that was how I started. At the time, it was Pretty Fly Copy. Now it's justinblackman.com. But that's how I started my business, was because I had an anchor client.
I'm interested in that flagship project because my friend Brendan Hufford, it sounds as interesting. I think you know Brendan. He did a project called the 100 Days of SEO. And in a similar way, that project gave him a level of credibility. That sounds like the similar project. And it was probably, I don't know what year he did that, but like things like that, just putting yourself out there seem to be catalysts for a ton of opportunity. And you don't hear much about that anymore. Like 100 headlines in 100 days, one, that's like a massive undertaking. Like to write 100 headlines once, like one headline a day for 100 days seems like a lot of work. To write 100 every day.
Yeah. It was 10,211 headlines. Every day I had to write 100 headlines and post a blog about it. So I was always a few days ahead of where I was posting. So it gave me time to, just like format things and do that. But it was 3 to 4 hours every day between writing and posting. It was exhausting. And honestly, I don't recommend it. The way that I did it, I didn't take breaks. I didn't take weekends off. It was not good for my family. It was like the beginning of the end of trust and things like that. I focused on the wrong things. I don't recommend doing it the way that I did it. Challenges are great, but I've written about this before. Like if I were to do it again, I would absolutely do it different. People say like, I want to do a project like this. I said, cool, read my post first, learn from my mistakes, and then decide if you want to do it. To the best of my knowledge, no one has done it since. They're smarter than I was. I was too dumb to say no, basically. But
what would you have done?
Well, it's not that I would have done it. I would have taken weekends off. I would have probably changed the amount of time. Like people didn't really care. So the truth is it actually took 108 days because I was 8 days ahead. And at certain points I cashed in a day where I didn't write, but I still posted. So
right.
Those days I needed for my sanity. But like it got to the point where like on weekends, my kids were little at this time. And my wife, who's now my ex-wife, would originally say like, hey, we're going to the park. Do you want to come? And I would say, no, I need to write my headlines. So they would go to the park on the weekends and I would stay home and write. That was part of the reason why she is now my ex-wife. I made tremendous mistakes at that point. It's not the reason why we got divorced, but it was the beginning of the end. I started focusing on me rather than the family. Not to get too personal here, but like I kept saying that like I was doing this for them because like I want to build something for them. I wasn't. It was selfish. I did it for me. This is what years of therapy later has taught me. Like looking back on it, I know a lot of mistakes. So I'll be candid about that. I've written about that. I don't want to be known as the guy who, destroyed his marriage because of the headline project. That's not what it was. But it did show me that my priorities weren't in line with what a good husband should be. And I've learned a lot from then, a lot of corrections. My kids are great. My relationship with my ex is great, in great relationship now. So it all worked out the way that it should have. But I regret the effort that I put in building my name and focusing on the wrong thing when it should have been spent on family.
I think a lot of us feel that feeling, which is we tell ourselves we're doing this for them. I mean, I'm very guilty of this. Early on, when I went out on my own, working a boatload, up early, do the thing with the kids, see the wife, then back to work, like working late, up, go to bed, like kind of just on this repeat cycle. And after a few months, my wife is incredibly supportive of me trying to do this thing, especially then. And at some point she had to tell me, she was like, the answers aren't in your screen. And that was a very eye-opening moment. And I think because I told myself, like, I'm doing all this like for you. And at the time we had one young 9-month-old son, and now we have 2, but like it's like all of this is to help build, like support the family. Like I'm working so hard, but I think what you are talking about, which is like, yes, it's for that, but there's a lot of ego that drives that ambition. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Like I joke that with people, you don't have to be crazy to do this work, but it helps. You got to be a little irrational to keep going, to be an entrepreneur in any capacity. And I think what you're describing, all I have to say is I totally relate with what you're describing, in that in order to admit that it is a selfish thing, it's not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but to just call it what it is extremely powerful, because I went through it in my own way, and I know a lot of people who continue to go through that, and it's really hard to balance.
Yeah.
How did you work through that? What was your process?
So figuring out where the balance was.
Yeah, just because it's not like one day you decide, like, well, you just stop working. I mean, maybe you did. I don't know. Like I said, my wife looked at me, she said, the answers are not in your monitor.
Yeah.
And for me, it was, if you create the space in your life for your mind to wander a little bit and think differently, you'll create a different outcome. And for me, that worked. But I'm curious what worked. Like, what was it for you?
So it was a lot of therapy, honestly. And it was a lot of mindset work. I've worked with a few different mindset coaches. Linda Perry was the one who helped me put in a lot of boundaries as to understand what my motivations were and what I was doing wrong. I've worked with Brian McCarthy as well. And he was more about sort of understanding some of my internal motivations and things like that. And it was just sort of figuring out who I was, the way that I wanted to show up, and then dealing with it, working with an actual therapist on understanding who I was and beginning to like myself, but also realize how the outward projection of that was selfish. So that was the biggest thing, was mindset and therapy, honestly, were the biggest things. And I cannot recommend that enough to people who are going through stuff, because it is selfish, and it's okay that it's selfish. But as you're saying, it's cruel to pretend that it's not. Like, challenges inherently are selfish. It's about proving that you can do something. It's about showing the world that you can do something. It's showing off. It's proving to yourself that you are the type of person who can do certain things. But it's also proof that you can do something other people can't. And that's your internal motivation. Creating a business is hard. Most fail. We want to prove that we can do something. But it is selfish. I mean, Mount Everest is paved with people who thought that they could do something that they couldn't. And it's
also a very selfish endeavor to try and climb Mount Everest.
Yeah. It's to prove that you can do it, that you can beat the mountain. The mountain doesn't care. Nobody else really cares.
Yeah, the mountain's undefeated.
Yeah. So it's about proving to yourself that you are the type of person who can do something. And that's great. I'm all for that. Like you said before, you got to be a little bit crazy to do this. You don't have to be crazy, but it helps. Challenges like that inherently are selfish. That's not a bad thing. It gives you something to talk about. That's what makes you stand out, that you did something other people can't. Writing the 10,211 headlines, that's what got me a guest post on Copy Hackers. That's what caused my future client to reach out to me for the job. It got me where I wanted to go, but it also took me away from places that I did want, like that I thought that I should have been, which was with my family. It built my business, but it wasn't without sacrifice. And I'm happy with where my business is. I'm actually happy with where my life is, but there are a couple of things that I wish I did differently.
What was the moment for you where you felt like this can work?
It's funny. I actually wrote about this to someone yesterday. They asked me, they literally said, what was the moment that you felt validated to make this a thing? And honestly, I think part of the drive with where I am is that I never really did. And some days I still don't. This was also where a mindset thing came in. I had my first test project that I did with my first ever client. They had told me, like, I aced the project. I doubled their open rate. I doubled their click-through rate, made a bunch of sales. They're like, this was great. Can you do it again? And I said, yes, here's my rate. He's like, no, I need to do another test to prove that this wasn't a fluke. And I said, you can pay me for it. Otherwise, no. And he says, well, I guess we'll never know. And that destroyed my confidence, because I'm like, maybe it was a fluke. Maybe I wasn't really good. Even when I went on to work at IHG, I literally had a 100% success rate against every control I ever went on, meaning that my work converted better than the agencies or the previous versions. And I was called the best writer in the building. And I kept diminishing that. I was like, yeah, but there's only a couple of writers in the building. There were thousands of people in the building. And I kept diminishing it, and I kept wondering, am I really good? So building a business was about, I was never convinced that I was good. And there was a lot of insecurity that drove me because I wanted to prove to myself that I was good enough. This is where that being selfish came in. It wasn't until the mindset and the therapy stuff I clicked in, where someone said, what would it take for you to believe that you're good enough? And I sort of ran down the checklist, and he says, how many of those things have you done? And it was like 10 out of 10. I had done those things. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm good enough. I can let that go now. So as far as being confident that I can make this work, I wasn't confident until I realized that I already did.
I feel like you've had every reason in the book to just go get a job based on just the things that you're sharing with me. Why keep on keeping on, like, and not go back? Like, why is this so meaningful to you?
I'm in control of my own destiny. I have made so much more money on my own than I ever could have as an employee. I had my best year to date last year, which was more than double what I was making when I was working in-house. And every time I was in-house, every 3 years, I got laid off. And I felt good and I got comfortable, but I realized that I could be using my skills for myself rather than making someone else rich. I mean, I wrote $1 million campaigns. I brought in a lot of money for a lot of brands and for a lot of businesses. And I've done quite well. I'm not here to talk about the numbers or to flex on that stuff, but I just got bored. And I was like, you know what? I'm not writing the stuff I want to write. And I didn't want to be bored anymore. And I was like, this would be more exciting if I can make money for other people. The real test is, can I do it for myself? And when I finally proved that I can, I was like, you know what? This is pretty cool. And I don't work very hard most days. When I work hard, I work hard. But most days, it's kind of, there's a lot of thinking involved. There's emails, which I enjoy writing, seeing what resonates and things like that. But I'm not burning myself out on other people's deadlines. And it's just it's a better life now. It took a while to get here, but it's a better life now.
Yeah, totally. There's so much pressure, especially as an employee. I don't think it's intentional from employers, but they try to wring out their employees like a towel. It's like, how do we get more? Like, how do we push this? I don't think it comes from a bad place. I just think that's just conventional wisdom of anything and of most people in life. So it's interesting to hear you say that. You're like, that this idea of like slow productivity has been the unlock for you.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, working in the corporate world and all that, it was great. I had a lot of big wins, a lot of success, a lot of things that I really enjoyed. But I also realized that I was a cog in a machine where if I had to write an email, I had to write it 3 weeks in advance because the schedule was an email was slated for that day. It had to go through approval. It had to get loaded. It had the other people on the teams that had to get the imagery, that had to literally build it into the system, get it onto the calendar, get it scheduled, and get it out. Now I can wake up and write an email and send it 10 minutes later. And I enjoy the flexibility and the freedom that I have now, as opposed to hitting deadlines and putting out, just being a piece of something. No, I'm all of it. And it's a piece of me rather than me being a piece of it. And it just feels better. It's more aligned this way. I just enjoy it.
The skill of sitting down and writing a email in 10 minutes, people think that happens overnight.
So the fact is, I can write an email for you in 10 minutes. Usually my stuff start to finish is about 3 hours. The first draft is usually pretty quick, but I'm one of these people, because if I'm writing an email for you, I know where I need to go. When I write an email for me, I'm thinking, it's my process to think on paper. And sometimes I don't know where I'm going until I get there. And I like that. Some days, like if I'm in a launch or something like that, I know where I'm going with the email. But I wrote an email today, literally about my background, about my blue wall and things like that. I didn't know what the CTA was going to be. I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to talk about this. And then where I saw where it was going, I was like, oh, you know what? Okay. I think here it is. And then I'm able to close it out. But it took a little bit. I walked away from it for a while. When I say 3 hours, it's not 3 hours of writing and editing. It was first draft in 15 minutes, walk away from it for a while, come back, write an edit, maybe think about it. Was that the right angle? Do I want to change this? Is this really what I want to say? Clean it up a little bit. So it's a couple of different chunks. Usually I do 3 passes, then a test email to see how it looks on the inbox, and then 3 hours later. It's usually about 3 hours. There are some emails that I can write in 10 minutes and just send, but I do want to be clear that when I say I can write an email in 10 minutes, it's much harder to write your own stuff than for other people.
Yeah. Well, it's like hard. What do they say? It's hard to read the label from inside the jar. Like if it's your stuff, you're so close to it that being that close to it adds friction to the process. But I think what you're describing, writing your own emails, I always talk about it like there's a level of easy thinking from all of us that takes place, and you can kind of get through that pretty quick. And then you get to a point where you're like, oh, I haven't thought about this thing yet. What do I think about this? What is my process? What is my framework?
Yeah.
What is my approach? And you may have it, but you've never documented it or really reflected on it. That's the level of hard thinking that most people want to avoid. But that's where the juice is.
That's brand voice. That's where I live. I like doing the deep thinking. This is what I do with people, for people, and for myself. I have done a lot of deep work and deep reflection. I understand what my voice is. There are a lot of things that I've written that I haven't sent. And it's because when I figure out what my stance is, I was like, this actually doesn't align with my brand. This was a journal entry. This was my therapy. This is not for the list. This was for me. Yeah. I don't send those. But yeah, understanding what your perspective is, that's really the thing that I help people figure out is when you're writing for an email, you're writing as a brand. You're not necessarily writing as you. There's a difference between Justin Blackman and justinblackman.com. And I understand what my focus is. So when I'm writing, it begins with that big picture, but then it gets very narrow and very specific, and it has to align with what I've been saying, what my thoughts are, what my processes is, what my frameworks are. So it has to come down to a consistent message, which is really a consistent perspective that I've been able to hone with my brand voice. That's really the true challenge. I think that's my interpretation of what you're saying.
Yeah, totally. I don't think of it through the lens of brand voice as much as it is, there's like this epidemic of uninsightful insights in the world. And I think the problem is because most people refuse unintentionally. It's an unconscious decision, but it's a refusal to go past the easy thinking.
Yeah.
Because it's uncomfortable, because it hurts. It's an extremely frustrating experience to format an opinion on something that you haven't spent any time thinking about. And back to like that whole wring you out like a towel analogy, people feel like that's what's happening to them when you are trying to get them to force out an insight. That's why I think the problem is with like a standard like ghostwriting arrangement. They're like, please expert at me for an hour so I can make you a bunch of stuff out of you experting at me. And then the stuff is like very ho-hum. It's like uninspired because it's a lot of stuff that people haven't thought about.
Yeah. There's a training that I've run primarily with copywriters and a couple of business owners called Manifesto Maker, where we help you figure out what is that deeper thing? What is your line in the sand? And when you were saying the uninsightful insights, it basically came to the point where a lot of us were just talking in platitudes. And we didn't really understand what our motivation was. We're like, oh, we just want to make the world a better place. Or I want to help, I write copy that converts. Or I want to help people get unstuck. I'm like, well, why? Well, because it's important for them. Well, why? Well, because they're not showing up the way that they're supposed to. They're not able to help people. And they're like, well, why is that important to you? Because, I want to help them. Why? Because nobody helped me. Why? because I never had the resources that are available now. And I wish that somebody helped me. Why? Because my mother, father, aunt, uncle said this. They're like, go deeper. What's there? And they're like, I was taught to believe that I can't succeed. And now I think it's really important to help other people succeed and not be stuck the way that I was because of something that a third grade teacher said. Okay, now I have something.
Now we have, yeah.
But you have to get people uncomfortable. Like a lot of people turn off the cameras during this thing because tears just break through and tears. And some people come out and they read this stuff. And one of the things that we do in Manifesto Maker is we write something so powerful that your hands begin to shake. And we write by hand. We don't write on keyboard. That's the deep insight. Once you figure out, I am pissed at my third grade teacher, you can either let that go or you can dial in. Like, I understand now it's not my job to help you get unstuck. It's my job to cut the tie that's holding you back from something that was planted a long time ago that wasn't your fault. Once we figure out what that is, you can go forward like a rocket. Now I have something I can work with. Now I understand your perspective, your mission, your value, your why, all of that stuff. Going deeper, yeah, it hurts, but the release that comes out of it, the benefit of it, you get a stronger voice, you get a stronger perspective, you actually have an insightful insight that can truly help people as opposed to a platitudinal one.
Well, what do they say, right? The problem of one is like the problem of many.
Yeah.
Like if you feel this and you're facing this, we tend to tell ourselves that it's not that it's not unique to you, but there are other people who feel the same way.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of writing, especially in the LinkedIn marketing, goes way off, in my opinion. Is like it's so not specific that it's like the overgeneralization. Like, if you were to share something like that, that's like most people, anyone who has that is gonna get it. And those are the people that need to.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need everyone to get it. We need the people who are supposed to get it will, and those who don't never will.
Yeah.
How many iterations of this service offering, because you do a bunch of different things and you have done a bunch of different things, like how many iterations of your services have you gone through before you landed on what you feel like really works and what you're doing right now?
Oh, a bunch. So, I started out writing websites and emails. My original business was conversion copy that was funny. Like my first headline on my first website was conversion copy that makes you snarf coffee out your nose. It was funny. It was punchy. It was just fun copy. And then it was, emails for eco-friendly brands and B Corp brands, things like that. And then I wound up doing Facebook ads for a long time. And I thought that was my superpower, was writing Facebook ads. I wrote for 329 people over the course of 2 years. And when I told people that, they're like, holy shit, how did you do that? How did you write in so many voices? And I told them my process. And they're like, oh, wait, that's not normal. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's actually what I do. It's not that I write Facebook ads, it's that I can write like anyone. So I started talking about that. Then I leaned into brand voice. Then I started teaching it. And then I started creating voice guides. And then that's still what I do now. But now what I'm doing is I'm helping people separate themselves from the brand. So the brand can scale beyond them, can actually be stronger than them. So they could show up fully in the brand, but not fully as themselves. So they can keep some of their private life private and keep their personal brand as a piece of them, but not all of them. So I wasn't counting, but however many that was, that's how many iterations it's been.
How did you acquire 329 clients in 2 years?
So the client that hired me from the hotel company, they were an agency that ran Facebook ads for people. They brought in the clients. I just did the writing. I was in the shut up and let me write phase where they just gave me stacks and stacks of intake forms. And I sat down writing literally as many for ads and emails for up to 6 different people every day. So back before when said write an email in 10 minutes, I could do that all day. That was my thing. I would read their intake form. I would watch their video and I would find a hook and I'd be like, I got it, and just go. I was on fire. It was the most creative in my life I've ever been. Followed by severe burnout.
I was going to say, so when did you hit the wall?
After 2 years. Like I couldn't write for like 6 months.
How many headlines is that? How many ads did you write in that 2 year span then?
So it was 329 people. Actually, that was over 18 months. That was 5 emails per client, then plus all the one ad, 5 emails. That we used templates, but I still had to personalize all the template.
Right.
You wouldn't necessarily.
I mean, you're a production studio at that point.
That was literally a one-man content team, and it was awesome. And I was alive. And it's funny. Before, when I said to that guy about that guy who said, "We'll never know if you're good enough," when the Facebook changed its system and they really just didn't need me anymore because the ads weren't working the same way. They were able to templatize certain things. It was also time for me to leave and kind of do my own thing. When I left, I said, I wrote all these things, but I didn't actually see all the numbers. I don't know if I was any good. And he literally said, "Dumbass, if you weren't any good, would we have let you write 329 of these?" And I was like, okay. That's when I finally believed that maybe I was good.
It is so interesting to me, this recurring theme among almost everyone I speak with, either on this show or just privately and work with, is like, we all have this same limiting belief, no matter what level of success we achieve. No matter what, there's always that like seed of doubt. And to some extent, it's definitely healthy because it pushes you to continue to try hard.
Yeah.
To try and to continue to learn and do all the things. But on the other end, it can be crippling in a lot of ways where you live in this doubt, like any day now, they're just going to fucking fire my ass because I suck at this thing. Like even 329 clients later, and you still are like, mate, it's coming. It's like Milton in Office Space. It's like, today's the day. Today is the day.
Yep. PC load letter.
I hear it a lot, and I don't know where it comes from, this limiting belief. I don't know exactly where it comes from, but it's like we all have it. And like I said, a certain extent of it is healthy, but a lot of it can, if it overtakes you or consumes your thinking, it can certainly drag you down.
This is where mindset work and therapy comes in, because the things that are like you said, you don't know where it comes from. It comes from someplace else for everyone. And it's usually something that happened when you were a kid. Yeah. Like some of my things literally stemmed from an incident at a grocery store when I was 5 years old. Like going back and figuring out, oh, that's why that's there. I can let go of that now. Things like that and that's a true story. Like it had nothing to do with the way I was raised or anything like that. It was a seemingly insignificant scenario where somebody either said or didn't say something to me. And that's what led to a lifetime of a certain belief about myself. And it just sticks, being able to let that go. But that's actually one of the things that when I do these deeper exercises with people, and I'm not pretending to be a therapist, but I can do brand therapy. I can understand where the motivation is, how this should actually show up in your brand, or whether or not this is something that's in your life that doesn't belong in your brand. I can help you lean into that or remove it depending on what the right course of action is. That's where that unique perspective comes in. That's where we get something to really stand out, is to understand yourself on a deeper level, way beyond what most entrepreneurs think.
I wonder why most people don't even care to go that deep. Like I talk about easy thinking, and there's the limit there. What have you found is the barrier or the reluctance for a lot of people to get to that next level?
So I think with a lot of the entrepreneurs who I work with now, a lot of it is age. A lot of people have young people energy. And usually like being a good enough writer was good enough at the time. But when I needed something to make me actually stand out, besides the headline project, like I didn't want to talk about the headline project. I didn't write headlines anymore. I didn't really want to be a writer. I want to be a brand voice guy. I stopped talking about that. I needed something to make me stand out. I knew that I wasn't confident. And literally the way that I developed this system is because I wanted a way to prove that I was right. That when I gave people, my lack of confidence was the drive to find a system that worked, that could scale. I turned that into my strength. I also understood that most of the people I was working with weren't confident enough. And I understood that motivation. When I began talking about that, the reason why I did this and the process, that's what made me different. And I wasn't afraid to say, hey, this was born out of a place of fear. This isn't a cash grab. I wanted to finally prove that I was good. This is the way that I could use a mathematical process to confirm that I got the brand voice right. I could defend my work. That's what started resonating with other people. And they're like, I want that. I want to know that I'm right before I hand in the draft. So I wasn't afraid to talk about that fear, that lack of confidence, and being able to step in as a confident person now because the system really does work.
There's something that changes, like the swagger injection you receive when you feel like, or when you know that the process is good and the process works, it's reliable. I don't like it, repeatable. Like, yes, I can do this thing over and over again, but it's just reliable.
Yeah.
We know that we're going to get you where you're trying to go. The swagger injection is unreal, is unmatched. That the confidence that you can show up with in the work that you're doing, and then the difference that you can make. I totally get that.
So the lack of confidence that I used to have in my skill was counteracted and even eliminated by the confidence I had in the system. So I understood how I could speak. Like, look, on this podcast, we have spoken about stuff I didn't plan on talking about. I'm not afraid to talk about that because I understand who this is. But when we talk about business, I will show up confident and just secure in my process. I know that what I do is good. It's not who I am, it's what I do. And there's a difference between those things. So I think what you asked about before about, that difference and that shift and when the confidence comes and going deeper in things, it's understanding who you are isn't what you do. That's the thing. It's something, what you do is like your brand is a piece of you. It's not all of you. When you have that, when business is going well and it's your personal brand, you feel on top of the world. But when it doesn't go well, it means you feel insecure and all that. Like, look, business has been hard for a lot of people, and myself included, these last 6 months. My life has been going great. My business hasn't been fantastic, but my life is going great. It used to be that those wouldn't be possible. If my business wasn't going well, my life would be in shambles. I would just be like, oh my God, I'm garbage, I'm nothing. Now I can see the separation. And I mean, that's literally the shirt that I wear. The feelings are gross. It's understanding the feelings of your brand about what you are. I mean, this is literally a pun because of the platform that I say is feelings are gross. And that was because as I was going deeper, I was like, I don't like this. And it was like, feelings are gross. It's just something that I used to say. But then I realized that feelings are gross, as in they are your gross earnings. They're everything that you have accumulated from the time you were born until right this very minute. It's everything. It's a gross from an accounting term. Your brand is net. It's you minus deductions. So just like you would, like you have your gross earnings and your net earnings, your brand is you minus certain pieces. I understand what those pieces are, so I can show up confidently and secure in my life and understand that the taxable pieces, they don't show up in my brand. So I can leave that to the side. So going deeper has allowed me to show up in my brand way more confidently because what's happening outside of these walls, like you can't see my hands right now. You have no idea what's happening over here. When I'm in here, in this box, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. I'm confident in that. The outside world doesn't come into it. This world doesn't come out of that. Being able to separate it and understand that my personal brand means something that I own, but it's not personal in the sense that it's my private life. There's two definitions of personal. I think a lot of us get it confused. There's something that's ours, and then there's something that's private. My brand is something that's mine, but it's not my private life. That has given me the confidence and the ability to show up consistently and in a more proven, scalable way that is way less exhausting, that I think has been better for me. And it's something that I help a lot of entrepreneurs with as well.
I love that perspective. It is so hard to draw the line between, especially as an entrepreneur, the value of the business in the value of your life or how well the business is going compared to how well your life is going. Because all business is personal. This is the really tough thing to straddle here, which is all business is personal. Anyone who says otherwise is lying. And yet when things don't go the way you want in business, it bleeds into your life because it is your life. Like it's a major part of your life. But to make it not your whole identity, and I like how you said it's like it's what you do, but it's not who you are. That reframe is incredibly powerful, because the idea of when I walk out of this office and I shut the door, even though my commute is 9 steps down the stairs into the kitchen to see my family, when that door shuts, and I'm very much not good at this, but when that door shuts, I'm supposed to clock out.
Yeah.
So I very much, I love that perspective. And it's also a work in progress. Like it's not like one day the switch will flip, but it is definitely something that
it takes a while. It's work.
Yeah. Justin, looking back, what's something you would have done differently?
If I were to do it differently, I think I would have realized how much a personal brand also affects, or being an entrepreneur. If I were to do this differently, I think I would have tried to realize how much being a solo entrepreneur affects those around us. Yes, it is about you, but there's also casualties. There's friendly fire that affects the people around you, the way that you show up. There's a lot of effort in this, and it is a little bit selfish. I wish that I would have understood the boundaries and what that meant a little bit more, and been more aware of how a personal brand affected my private life early on, and defined my boundaries a little bit better to keep everyone around me safe. I'm happy with where things turned out. I'm in a great place right now, but I wish that there wasn't as much collateral damage building the brand and doing what I thought it'd take to stand out along the way.
Amen to that, man. Well, let's end here. Looking forward, what's next for you? What do you want to build that you haven't built yet?
So I'm actually building something right now, which is a project called Founder Unbound, where a lot of the people who I am working with right now are looking to define their brand in a more concise way with boundaries that protect both the brand as well as their personal lives. So I'm really excited about the evolution that I'm in right now, where I'm helping people to define their personal brand separate from themselves so that they can show up stronger at work and also stronger at home.
Right on, man. Justin, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story with me. I know for a fact more people feel seen because of it. And this has been a blast, dude. Thank you.
You got it.
If you were to leave Earth tomorrow, what would be your last meal here tonight?
Man, I instantly just thought of a pizza place back in New Jersey called Il Giacalone's. I don't even know if it's still there, but that was just where I went. I live in the South now near Atlanta, and there's some good pizza here, but there's not New York, New Jersey pizza. I would go for that.
Yes, New Jersey pizza. I'm with you for the win. I don't know the pizza place you're talking about, but if it's still there, or any Jersey pizza is underrated.
Yeah, it's just as good as New York. If some places it's better, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in Connecticut now, and Connecticut is arguably pizza capital of Earth. People don't realize that. Connecticut and New Haven.
Yeah.
Connecticut is the pizza capital of Earth.
That was the insurance capital. That's Hartford, I guess.
Hartford. Yeah, New Haven actually has the pizza, believe it or not. You'd be surprised.
Okay.
And there are people who are willing to die on that hill. So
all right.